Eventually, there comes a point in every young gamer's life when they realise they want to grow up from the kiddie games of their youth and move on to something a little more grown up. "Oh yes bruv," the ambitious young gamer suggests as he boxes up his Sega, Nintendo and Atari system, puts it in a box and then in its brand new home in the attic. We then see him zombie walking his way to the nearest overpriced game store, to the mysterious glowing green X. "What is this? Is it what I've been looking for bruv?" he says as he drools over the wall of annually released FIFA 19 Zombie Warfare Unity games. After deciding that instead of this month's supply of White Lightning and weed, the born again gamer hands over his well earned dole money to buy the console and of course another $59.99 for the game. He takes the console back to his council flat and plonks it in its new home under the telly and boots up the game, for he is now truly the grown up gamer he has always wanted to be. 6 days pass. Ha! He laughs as he sees an advert on Babe Station for Mario Kart 8. "They're really scraping the bottom of that barrel." FIFA 19 Zombie Warfare Unity 2. But wait, what's this? Everything you loved about the first game, but now with dogs. He boy races his way downtown, passing all his best friends outside Happy Shopper to take his smoke-stained game to the nearest CEX and gets a whopping £2.67 towards this fantastic remake. "Oh my god bruv, this is almost as good as the last game." This cycle continues for approximately 5 years or 5 pregnant teenage girlfriends later, whichever comes first, until that beloved green X turns into 3/4 of a red circle. And it looks like it's game over for the middle-aged gamer, with only one thing left to do. Okay, so obviously I'm joking and that was very stereotypical, but to be honest, if you're watching a video like this, there's a very slim chance that you was ever this sort of gamer. But there is a high chance that you know this story way too well. Going through the second-hand section trying to find a gem and finding nothing but Call of Duty and FIFA games. Well, I was at one point in danger of becoming this sort of gamer as well, as I too wanted to venture into the more grown-up games, as things like Castle of Illusion seemed a bit too easy and, dare I say it, childish for me. But I went a very different path, which not only kept the classic games that I always loved alive and kicking, but filled that big boy urge I so desired. Now as a young lad, I loved playing platformer games. In fact, that's never really ever changed. But as I got older and better at these games, I wanted something that was a bit more challenging and a bit more realistic. Thankfully, cinematic platformers did just that. As usual in Slope's Game Room, it's best to start at the beginning. The year is 1985 and Jordan Mechner had just received his BA in psychology from Yale University. He had created several games for the Apple II computer prior to this, and all of which are a tad forgettable in their own right. But more importantly for this story, they helped lead Jordan on his path to create his first full published game, Karateka. Karateka is in fact an early run-along fighting beat-em-up game. Jordan wanted the game to have a far more realistic feel to current games and used his love of woodblock print art as well as early Disney animation films for how the game should look, claiming that such works convey such powerful emotion and atmosphere without a word being spoken. He wanted to combine not only great gameplay but also small cinematic cutscenes to create a full cinematic feeling game. To do this, he used a technique known in the animation industry as rotoscoping. Rotoscoping, in short, is a technique where you film someone acting out the animation of a character, which you then trace the movements, resulting in a far more realistic animated character. A good early example of this is the often forgotten classic animated movie Gulliver's Travels, which is currently in the public domain. In other words, it's completely legal to download and watch the film. Link in the description. Anyway, Jordan used this rotoscoping animation technique for his game by filming his karate instructor and drawing over the images, giving the game a fully unique and very real feel compared to the competition at the time. Once completed, the game went on to be a big success with everyone that played it, even getting a remake in recent years for the PS3, 360 and Wii U, as well as a faithful original remake a year later for Android and iOS devices. But as great as the game was, it wasn't a true cinematic platformer. So let's move on to Jordan's second published game, and what most class as the first ever cinematic platformer. Obviously, this franchise needs no introduction. And if you've ever played any of the original games, you'll understand what I mean when I use the term grown-up platformer game. Unlike the classic Mario games that came before it, Prince of Persia actually finds our hero moving from screen to screen, giving you, the player, more time to work out exactly how you should traverse the obstacles ahead in a far more realistic fashion. But don't take too long though, as you are timed to complete the game within 1 hour. That obviously does mean that when you get good at this game, you're going to be able to complete the game within an hour. Or 2 hours if you have the SNES version. Just like Jordan's first game, he used a rotoscoping technique by filming movements made by his brother to give the game its realistic feel. Computer Gaming World reviewed the game saying that it breaks new grounds with animation, so uncannily human it must be seen to be believed, and that it captures the feel of those great old adventure films, a tremendous achievement. The plot of the game revolves around saving the princess from Jafar, no, not this one, as she is forced to be his wife, otherwise she will die at his hand. As stated before, you need to do this within the hour, whilst avoiding all types of traps and defeating Jafar's swordsman by making your way up the 12 levels of the tower where the princess is held and complete the game. The game is pretty hard when you first try it, and what makes this different to more obvious platformers is the fact that you can't just instantly pick up and play the game to completion. Thankfully. Now, unlike Jordan's earlier game, you can save this one, but what makes the game so hard is the fact that there is a unique way to get to the other side of almost every screen. Go fast, go slow, dodge switches, or jump a certain way, and unless you can somehow see the future, the only way to complete this is to die a lot, resulting in a far more clever, albeit sometimes frustrating, platformer. One of the few games I suggest you go and look up a speedrun for, because when you can play a game like this fast with only a few deaths, or preferably none, you look and feel like an absolute boss when doing so. The game very much stands up even today, and I highly suggest you try it out. If you have the time to put into it, it is really worth it. Obviously, I don't need to tell you guys what Prince of Persia became. Several sequels and a movie which was supposed to be Disney's answer to the original Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. Unfortunately for them, it wasn't. But even though the film was sort of average at best, the games have all been well above average, and that original Apple II game getting more remakes than ever. If you're looking to play this game, and like I said I highly suggest you do, you can download the remake for the 360 or the SNES version, which is available on the Wii Virtual Console. Both remakes do a great job of keeping the original's true format alive. And if you want to laugh, you can always try the Mega CD version, which includes the system's trademark FMV cutscenes.
Young knight, methinks you are getting a little too friendly with the princess. And to reach my goals, I must get you out of the way.
Hopefully, this has given you an insight into what an actual cinematic platformer is. Even with the genre's strong following online, unfortunately there really isn't that many of these games, and 2 years after the release of the original Prince of Persia in England, we got Another World, or Out of This World in North America, and Outer World in Japan. Again, this is another game that, if you're a gamer like myself, needs no introduction, and the fact that this game has been remade and released on almost everything from the original Amiga all the way up to the Xbox One, PS4 and Wii U, there really is no reason you shouldn't give this game a go. This is constantly regarded as one of the greatest games, not only of its genre, but of all time. Another World finds our protagonist Lester Knight, a physicist who is experimenting with a particle accelerator trying to reconstruct what happened when the universe was born. Suddenly, the lab is struck by lightning, a wormhole opens and Lester is sent to another world. He is captured by a group of aliens, imprisoned, and it is your job to help him escape. The game was created by Eric Shahi, who originally started the project looking at Karateka as inspiration, but obviously with a far more sci-fi feel. Let's face it, this was the age of the Star Wars phenomenon. As I already stated, the game is really fantastic and it has been released on almost everything since its Amiga days. Finish this video and go and play it. Now, before working on this game, Eric worked with Paul Cussat on the game Future Wars, and while Eric ventured off to make Another World, Paul worked on Flashback, which was released only a year after Another World. Here we are on the third game in this genre, and yet again it's another fantastic release, as is its sequel, Fade to Black. This time our unnamed hero wakes up in the middle of the jungle, not knowing where he is or who he is. You eventually find out your name is Conrad B, and you're an agent for the Galaxia Bureau of Investigation, and it's your job to save the world from shape-shifting aliens. I don't want to ruin any more of the story, as this game is truly a cinematic masterpiece, as does the sequel. Unfortunately, the third game in the trilogy was in development, but due to the company going under, was never released. Even though this genre isn't oozing with games, there is just enough to whet your appetite with the fantastic Oddworld games, Limbo and my personal favourite, Heart of Darkness, taking the spotlight. Where do I begin with Heart of Darkness? The game is outstanding for me. It's the perfect cinematic platformer blending cartoony animation similar to such cartoons as The Dreamstone, with a really eerie feel of a good Terry Pratchett novel. Unfortunately, the cutscenes are the only thing about this game that lets it down. Sure, almost all CGI cutscenes in games have aged, but I feel that this has aged a tad worse than others for the time. Plus, they don't really suit the graphics that you find in the game. Anyway, we need the cutscenes to actually know what the story's about. The plot revolves around our hero Andy, who hates his overly abusive teacher, loves his dog Whiskey, and suffers from a fear of darkness. And this is where all logic for the storyline shoots out the window. And you know what? That's okay. Andy and Whiskey go to the park when suddenly a black hole opens and sucks Whiskey away. Andy runs to his treehouse, which just happens to be a treasure trove of inventions. He gets in his spaceship and flies to the Darklands after his dog. And here we go, the game begins. Playing this game 15 years later, it still, minus those cutscenes, completely holds up. Why is this game so good? Well, Eric Shahi from Another World has returned and become one of the several designers working on the game. The way your character, as well as every other character, moves in the game is incredible. The backgrounds are fantastic, everything comes together to make a game that has held its place in my top 10 games of all time with no chance in moving anytime soon. Even the music deserves a mention, with Bruce Broughton at the helm, responsible for making great soundtracks, such as Homeward Bound, The Rescuers Down Under, and Miracle on 34th Street. You owe it to yourself as a gamer that if you haven't tried it already, you really should. So there you have it, the world of cinematic platformers. Hopefully you have enough here to keep you going, and hopefully at least one of these titles will spark your interest. Well, at least enough for you to try something different than this year's Assassin's Creed. So, thank you very much for watching. Sorry this video's taken so long. I've got no real excuse for that, except that I've been playing a lot of Binding of Isaac on my PSP and Smash Brothers on my Wii U. If you're still up for some retro gaming goodness, I suggest you check out Retro Game Geeks. And two people I suggest you check out on there are Champion Gamer Snatch and Sarah Sharkbait. Both of these guys are hilarious and do some fantastic reviews. And while you're at Retro Game Geeks, why not check out the forum, where you can see sneak peeks of all my upcoming videos, give feedback and even give some suggestions. On top of this, I also think you should check out another Funkin' Gamer who I recently discovered on Twitter, who does Let's Plays of some really good Steam games. And finally, if you found the animation topics of this video interesting, then definitely check out the Rotoscopers, who do video video updates, podcasts, and have a fantastic website where you can get all your up-to-date news on the animation world. And finally, why not check out some of my previous videos? Rate, comment and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you all next time.